Okay, we might as well get started. Welcome everybody to the HSMAI webinar. Tomorrow starts today. We haven't done an event in Thailand for a while, so this is our first time here and it's great to be back. So we'll, after introducing some people, then we will be looking at Tu New from OTA Insight, who's going to give us some demand data for the Thai markets. So that'll be great. And then Nicolas has kindly offered to tell everybody how to use demand data to better forecast and plan. And then we'll hand over to Ollie, who can help us with what we should be doing right now. And he doesn't have the answer about Omicron, I believe. But, you know, other than that, he's got the answers. What should we be doing now? And then as a little special bonus, Sandy's going to take us through a little session on total revenue optimization. So we're going to squish a lot into your lunchtime. We can't see most of you, so you can eat in front of us. That's fine. Now I hand you over to Sunny Yu. Sunny has been leading up the HSMAI chapter in Thailand for a while, and then she left and came back. So welcome, Sunny. How are things going in Thailand at the moment?
Thank you, Jackie. Hello, everyone. Wow, finally, I have some positive news to share. Actually, 90%, I would say, life in Thailand is back to normal, but I will not say too much because later on we will have accurate up-to-minute data shared by our speakers. But it's absolutely a great time to really kick off our HSMAI educational events again. And hopeful we can meet offline and have our face-to-face event very soon. And Jackie, I know we have some new friends actually joining us today. Maybe you can give us a quick introduction of HSMAI, who we are and what do we do?
Yeah, sure. I've got some handy slides on that. Okay, for those who are really new, HSMAI stands for Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association International. There's 4 regions around the world. It's a non-profit association and it's been around for 95 years. So we're sort of looking up closely at our 100th birthday soon. We focus on sales, marketing and revenue management. So really, we all call that commercial now, don't we? So we try to focus on commercial now.
Yeah. Sorry, just one. I do one thing. It's pretty much 360 degree from commercial, marketing, digital channels, etc. So it's really a 360 degree.
Yeah, it is. And I think a lot of you might know us from the certifications that we run globally. So the CRME is the Certified Revenue Management and the CHDM is for the digital marketing one. So they're certifications that you can get to help you get promoted, get new jobs, prove that you know and that you're an expert on those 2 disciplines. There's also an online program that was put together by the revenue advisory boards, which are the heads of revenue around Asia Pacific. They put together this online program for people coming into the revenue department, or also people who maybe are just taking over and managing revenue when they haven't come from the revenue department before. We get a lot of GMs looking at it as well, which is interesting too. There's a brand new one now called Ready for Digital, and there's about 15 courses that you can do 10 of to get your certificate in digital marketing. So again, that's more for people with less than, say, 3 years experience. So since we've last seen you, we're doing events in 8 markets now. I think we probably added India, Japan and the Maldives since last time we've been working in Thailand. And then we have one main annual conference every year, and that's the Revenue Optimisation Conference. And in 2022, that'll be in Singapore in June at Marina Bay Sands. So if anybody's allowed to travel then, I hope to see you there. Okay, so that's my really short HSMAI introduction. You can shoot questions during all of these sessions in the chat line or the Q&A. And I'll hand over now to New from OTA Insight. And she's going to share her screen and give you some of the really latest. How late is the data, New? Yesterday? Today?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So it's my pleasure having you all on the call today. So let me share my screen quickly. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So today I would love to share with you some of the insight data on the industry and of course focus on Thailand market. So of course, with the pandemic, right, it had a lot of effect on the hotel hospitality industry. So of course, you may know that a lot of the team member have been laid off, the team have been downsized, but you have a lot more to do. And it seemed like historical patterns seem to lose relevancy. So the hotel cannot rely on the historical data to help with their forecast. And of course, demand is significantly lower and the hotel seem to have more last minute booking. Also, since like Thailand start to opening up the border and
New, sorry, New to interrupt you. I don't think we can see your screen.
Oh.
Can anyone see the screen? No, I think you're seeing my screen.
Okay. Okay.
Ah, that's it.
Yes, now we can.
There's a nice flower. I'm assuming that's yours.
Can you see my screen now?
Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem. So can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So have I mentioned also since we start to open the border, right, the hotels seem to receive more international booking. But again, Thailand still focus on domestic leisure segment as well. So if we take a look when a hotel do the forecast during the pre and post-COVID, what are the difference? So during the pre-COVID, we usually look what are the demand driver. You look at your historical data and also the pickup trends. But it seemed like with the post-COVID up to new normal, we think that maybe this kind of set of data might not relevant, or you cannot use these kind of data to help make a accurate forecast anymore. So we think that what the hotel needs the most these days is a real-time and forward-looking data. Maybe first we take a look the current hospitality landscape this year, and maybe based on the survey, and if we take a look that when the traveler need to travel or they plan to travel against, especially to an international country, what they are really looking at. So they might look at the travel restrictions, slow virus containment, economic environment. For example, if they need to travel to economic country, they might afraid that if they get the disease, whether they're gonna get enough medical help. So these kind of factors really play an important part when the traveler decide to plan their travel again. And if we look at the travel ban and restrictions around the globe, so you can see that most of the destinations, we are still partially restricted. But again, you might see some of dark blue color in some of the area, meaning that they are still in total restricted. However, there might be also some destinations like these North and South America, they not seem to be restricted anymore. But again, these kind of ban and travel restrictions can change all the time during the time of uncertainty. So it's really, again, for the hotel to keep track of what's happening at the moments, right? And also, if we want to take a look at the vaccination rate, because it's also, again, play an important part in travel wish and travel restrictions. If we look at the key source market for Thailand, and based on the survey, like majority of the people keen to travel internationally, of course, if they receive enough vaccine. So it's really important for the hotel to be aware of this kind of data as well. So what does this really mean for 2022? What the hotel need to do differently to cope with the demand changing? So of course, we need to think what is a true demand driver. Is this events? public holiday, school holiday, customer wedding, festival, etc. Maybe you have to think first, what is the customer journey? If you have the guests checking in at your hotel today, so first, if they decide to, for example, come to Thailand, first stop might be Bangkok, then that client again start to look at their flight ticket, compare the flight in different platform, in different flight company before they decide to purchase the ticket. Then they start to look at the hotel, searching on the OTA, GDS meta search, read on the reviews. And this day, we think that also the traveler might also consider the alternative lodging like Airbnb as well, because people are more concerned on the social distance. And also they might go to Google search to look at, okay, what event, what activity that can do in this destination. So this kind of data, it's something that relate to when they start booking. This is the kind of the customer journey. And if you can capture this kind of data combined with your internal data, like you're on the book, your market benchmark, it's gonna help you to do a better forecast. Let me show you what is forward-looking data I can tell you for the Thailand market right now. So based on the flight searches for key destinations during the stay period, November and December, you can see that after the government announced with the reopening to over 63 countries, what we found that the key top countries searching to come to these key destinations is UK, Germany, France, Spain, Japan, South Korea. And again, if we look at the vaccination rate, these countries also have the high vaccination rate, and they are not in restrictive anymore. Again, this kind of data set can also keep changing lately. Like you may have heard that about 2-3 weeks ago, there's the outbreak happening in Europe, and it's again impact with the drop in searches, both flight and hotel searches for Thailand market as well. Again, if you look at the hotel search for Thailand, for key destination, Bangkok, Pattaya, Chiang Mai, and Phuket, what I found in common is that Thailand or domestic market come up as in number one in top 10 countries searchings. And this might be a result of the government campaign to boost the domestic travel until they can all be travel together. And also, if you look at in the beginning of the year up until this point in time, we never found such a high searches in hotel for key destinations we have ever seen so far. So after the announcement of the second week of October, again, we can see a very high increase in hotel search for the key destinations for Thailand. How about length of stay? In the past 2 years, we barely seen any hotel really put any restrictions, but we start to see these kind of restrictions, and it's really show a positive sign of recovery. Like I can show you right now for Bangkok's destinations during the festive season. For example, I pick up the 31st of December. You can see that 2 months ago, or as seen on the 28th of September, before the announcement of the reopening, none of the hotel is actually put any length of stay restrictions. But again, as seen now, for the same stay date, the 31st of December for Bangkok destinations, you can see like at least 1% of the hotel in Bangkok in this area start to put length of stay restriction for 3-night stay, right? Let's take a look like Phuket. Also the same during the festive season, 2 months ago before the announcement, none of the hotel really put length of stay restrictions. But again, right now, if we've seen on the data for today, for the same stay date, the 31st of December, then you can see like 7% of the hotel in this area is actually start to put length of stay restriction for 2 nights and also for 3-night stay. So it's really interesting. And last for Pattaya also, of course, like as you can see now, 6% of the hotel already put length of stay 2 for the night of the 31st of December. Why 2 months ago, none of the hotel really put length of stay restrictions. So when we can see that the hotels start to put length of stay restrictions, it might seem the market seemed to recover, and are the hotel really utilize these data to come up with their discount to maximize their revenue. So this kind of data, forward-looking, real-time, going to be a really crucial part to help the hotel to adjust their strategy, to help them come up with the right decision, put the right budget, the right effort at the right bucket. So this is pretty much it that I would love to share with you all today.
Okay, thanks, Nia. That was good. Interesting. So we might hand over now to Nicolas.
Yes, thank you, Jackie. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
Okay, so thanks, that was very insightful. So I'll just introduce myself and my company very quickly. So I'm the VP Revenue Strategy for S Hotel and Resort. S is for Singa. So we're part of Singa Estate, and we have properties in Thailand, when we launch our new brand at the beginning of the year, and also we own properties around the world. So I'm going to go with a focus, obviously, of what we're doing in Thailand, what I'm saying, try to share some insight also from my side. But look, for me, everything when we talk about planning, about forecasting, everything needs to start with data accuracy, automation, and BI. I think to what I can see, my main source of data is PMS data, obviously, but also looking at third-party data, like what we've just seen with OTA Insight. I think what's very important right now is, data accuracy, data quality, and I believe a lot of people also forget to see how you need to manage your reservation team, need to make sure that we have relevant data, and garbage in and garbage out. I know it's been said like 1,000 times, but it's still extremely important. So that's the key for me for any data, any planning. I think for me also, I've been using BI for quite a while. I don't think, there's a lot of options available, but I think there's a lot of hotels that I can see that still use. I think recently I did a survey on LinkedIn, and I think like 50% of the hotel were still using like manual extract from their PMS, which still baffles me personally speaking. I think that's one of the good things with the pandemic now. I think there's a lot of technologies, there's a lot of things coming up. So I think if you have a BI, I think there's a lot of things that can be done. And the last but not least for me also, when we talk about revenue management, revenue strategies, we have a lot of data actually now. I mean, OTA Insight and others really help on that. The only thing I would say is any of the data which is not actionable and does not bring any value to go and actually have an action, for me is irrelevant. So for me, it's always about, okay, what data do we see? Actually, can we action something? Otherwise, if we don't take any action, in my opinion, it's just probably wasting everybody's time, or you're not looking at the right data, right? So now I've kind of looked at this, obviously everybody knows, but COVID has completely changed the way bookings are made. So I'm just looking at this for some of my hotels in Thailand. This is the length, the lead time here that you have. So I'm kind of comparing 2019. So the hotel that we have, 26% of the booking were made 30 days out. And now I've looked at this for November. Now 81 of the bookings were made, of course, 81% as opposed to 26, right? So I think right now with COVID, there's, looking at same time last year and everything have become completely irrelevant. I think we really need to find new ways to see on how to compare data. in order to forecast, which has been a bit of a challenge. I'll be honest, but it's really more, again, I think this was said before, as much live data or as live as possible, right? One thing here also, I'm kind of looking at it, and this is something that I've loved looking at, and obviously with the current environment has become a real problem, right? So I know that some OTAs are really great. So I have a BI and I actually make sure that depending on the channel, you can see what's the cancellation policy. So this is for all our type properties. I'm looking here at key channels. You can see here, if you look at May, obviously in Thailand, we had the wave that came right around Songkran, and obviously May, most of it was canceled. But what's very interesting to see is really understanding what channels can sell at what ratio. The good thing that we're seeing, obviously now, as you can see, we used to have very high cancellation ratio. Everything is going down, which means obviously with the country reopening, with the cases going down, this is great. Obviously, what's going to happen now with the latest news is yet to be seen, but that's something I think everybody could need to have a look at also. So what I'm focusing on a lot is saying, okay, you know, what do we have on the books? What channels do we have? Obviously, you will see some channels have lower cancellation policy. Usually brand.com is much lower. Guests are loyal. And also usually when you look at booking.com, this is the highest cancellation policy because obviously the guest hasn't paid. So the payment and the way you handle payment to your property also is extremely important here, even though I know right now you need to be flexible, but just having a prepayment, even if you have flexibility to amend the booking, can help you also retain some business. So I think that's at least for me, a key element. Another way that I think looking at the data, right? Actually, this for me looks actually really horrible. So this is one of the hotel that I have looking at a 90-day pickup. And what I do now, I compare months to months. I think what is very important now, so this is the same data. And what I've done, I've actually worked on a 7-day average. So basically I can see, so this is months 1 to months 2, you know, and I can try to see not obviously versus same time 2 years ago or 3 years ago, even though I'm looking at that also to try to understand, you know, what the percentage of recovery we have, but 7-day average, and also looking at a 12 months average data to understand and better be able to better forecast. So I think that really helps. Look at the graph. And this is, look, this is October, November, I think for one of my property in Phuket. So we're actually looking at some trend that's, you know, it's not exactly the same, but you can really see when business picking up, how it is, and then obviously forecast better, especially the month for the months. I think forecasting now 6 months out, you know, 8 months out is extremely difficult. Right now, personally, you know, as usual, you know, you do 3 months out, even 3 months out is complicated, but the most important for me is you know, like 30 days out. And this is where we're trying to get as accurate as possible. So as I said, you know, try to get this, see about how you can compare different months, even though it's not exactly the same. When now I'm comparing obviously November and December, but very different ADR. So I think you need to be a little bit kind of think outside of the box, look at what you can get and really rethink data in order to look at much shorter, you know, having something which can be comparable. Also, as we discussed, you know, forward-looking data, for me, I think it's key. Here, this is some data also from Amadeus Demand 360. So this is something on top of what we have I thought it would be good to share that. So that's something that I got. And from Thailand, we can see that obviously November, we have overall close to around 27%. And we can see also the weekly pickup, right? So we can see obviously overall November, December is trailing much better. You know, we have a bid for Q1, but apart from that, then, you know, again, the lead time is completely changed. Market segmentation is changed. What I'm seeing also is obviously the wholesale segment is a challenge for them with all of those paperwork. Some of them, you know, because of GDPR, they don't want to share some of the data and to work on a tight path. So there's a lot of different markets, even though I'm sure the wholesale segment will come back also, and it's starting to pick up. This is for Bangkok. Here, in terms of occupancy, obviously this is based on data that are shared with hotels. So Bangkok is around 24%, is a bit lower, obviously here. So that gives a little bit of understanding where it is. And obviously for me, it's very important to just kind of compare that to where I'm getting at, right? And how the overall market's picking up. And here, obviously, Phuket with the sandbox program is doing better. Obviously, there's a lot more international flights. So we can see that, you know, December now is looking at around 36%. There with the hotel that share data, and it's picking up. And here we can see also Q1. I think we can definitely that for the sandbox program, which was open more, I think there's a slightly more confident then. Then and that was shared also. I think the flight search from OTA Insight is extremely important. Trying to understand also which markets are coming down. So this is for Phuket. Here, Russia, actually, even though it's not on the list of countries, there's actually a lot of search from Russia. We're actually seeing also in my property, seeing quite a bit of business from Russia there. So they come here, obviously they're going to have to sandbox. They are not going to be able they're going to have to sandbox first before going anywhere, but they're coming, and they're coming on a long average length of stay. Second thing for me is always OTA data. I think the OTAs have really great data on what they have. I don't think they've really changed anything, but two things for me is really booking.com is always quite good. We're seeing again Russia, and you can see how you're doing versus the market versus your comp sets. So, you know, really helps you. And then I'm sure Ollie after will be able to kind of explain a bit more on how you can put that into commercial action. So I think right now is really key to understanding your market, where this is coming from, what's the recovery per market, also to understand your market. And then what I like also personally looking at, you know, Expedia also, you can get your actual share. That also gives you a bit of an understanding on where we're going. If you have your share market, your market share, then you know that you're trailing well. Otherwise, you know that you can probably go and pick up a bit more. So overall, based on all of that, the way I would look at this on how to forecast in, you know, it's a very unstable environment still. The most important, you know, is understand all the country rules concerning COVID. I think there's a lot of different things. So country rules, vaccination ratio, obviously, your cancellation ratio, because you can be on a lot of risk if you have a lot more bookings from channels that will cancel potentially or can potentially cancel last minute. Historical data not valid as a comparison point. I still, however, use it. Obviously, the more we're getting into recovery, the more we're going to look at it. But the same thing, you know, you're going to have to want to go back, not 1 year ago, 2 years ago, probably soon it's going to be 3 years ago. Understand your current pace trend. So try to really, you know, shorten this, understand, you know, what do you pace, how do you pace the months for the months and versus prior months. OTA data, traffic of your brand.com will be extremely important also. Obviously, all of the OTA and your e-commerce team, I think you should be in contact with them to understand, you know, which markets picking up. And again, as I said, 7-day average will help you to visual better, have better trends, understand the pickup, and really being able to understand how you're picking up, what's the ADR you're picking up, and really work as much as possible towards forecast accuracy. The last two things though is, I think, as I mentioned before, you got to be extremely careful about analysis and paralysis. I think, you know, if you sit in a hotel, talk to your GM, talk to your sales team, talk to your head office, really look at the right KPIs, try to agree on what those KPIs are. And focus on those, and maybe, you know, and really agree on what's relevant for your hotel, what's relevant for your markets. So be careful in having analysis paralysis. I think that is one thing, I think, in today's world, that's where we get a lot of data, what we have to be careful. Then at the end of the day, my opinion is nothing's better than someone understanding his market, talking to your competitors, understanding the markets. You know, we're in an age where technology is there, but technology is nothing with the right human behind the computer to actually analyze, simplify, and then present it to the team. And there's always going to be a kind of a personal flavor adding to it, that I think, as much as we have data, I think the human touch will always be key. That's it for me. And then I'm gonna hand over to Ollie, that will be able to touch more on the commercial aspects.
I just have one question from the audience for you, Nicolas.
Yes.
Is forward data telling us anything about the rate people are actually booking? Do you know that one?
So look, there, I mean, you know, your rate shopper is going to do that. I think with forward data on the OTAs, usually you can compare your ADR versus the market. So you can have that. So obviously the rate booking are important. So I think this will tell you, I think what you have right now, there's a big importance of OTAs versus wholesale. So I think it's quite relevant, and that will help. That's what I would suggest on top of your rate shopping tools.
Great, thank you.
And okay.
Stop sharing. So we might
Yes.
go over. Thanks, Nicolas. That was a great help.
Thank you very much.
We've got limited time, otherwise we'd ask you more questions. So I'll hand over, well, not hand over, I'll bring Ollie in.
Hi, Jackie. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So you've got all the, you know, the data and the spreadsheets have gone past. So we sort of now want to look at what should hotels be doing now on the sales and marketing side. So there's a few things changed in the last few days with Omicron, right? With the new strain of COVID. But what's happening now in Thailand?
Yeah,
What's
certainly. The last week has.
I think we should start with.
Yeah, I mean, the last week has turned everything on its head somewhat, but so far, we haven't seen too many changes to the local trading environment and the restrictions into Thailand, which is positive. And we hope that holds, because we know that Thailand really led the way in Asia with the Phuket sandbox back in July.
Yeah.
And we want to continue to lead the way in the reopening, particularly in Southeast Asia. So following the Phuket sandbox, of course, since the 1st of November, vaccinated travellers have been able to enter Thailand under 2 much more flexible models. And from the 16th of December, the entry requirements under both of those models are set to be relaxed further. So the very successful test and go model is the entry requirements are being reduced, which will remove one of those barriers to entry. And the sandbox model, which has been very successful, will again be relaxed, requiring only 5 days of stay before forward travel into other destinations. And I'll pick up on some of the stats that Nicolas shared for the Russian market particularly. So Nicolas mentioned that Russia isn't in the test and go model, yet we're still seeing it in the top source market for most hotels. So it just shows that the sandbox model can work really well for source markets that are staying, 5, 7+ nights. So that's been really pleasing for us to see, and I'll touch on that a little bit more later in the session.
Okay, so is everybody still focusing on domestic, or is that still the bulk of the actual business, or is it
we're really in a stage of a very strong pivot. So obviously the last 18 months for everybody on the call has been domestic, with the exception, of course, of Phuket, who have had the last 4 months of international opportunity. But we've seen a big swing in our trends since the 1st of November. So if we look back in October, 55% of our business 55% of our pickup was coming from the domestic market. Switch to November, 70% of our business is coming from international.
Wow.
But our total pickup hasn't reduced. It's actually doubled. So we're still seeing great demand from the domestic market, but exponential growth from inbound source markets. So I guess, the tips for everybody on the call today is focus where the demand is, because the trends are not trends for very long. So we need to stay nimble and use insights from our partners to identify those demand opportunities, potentially before we start to see the bookings from those source markets. And further to that, of course, we need to respond very quickly to the changing conditions, because a source market that could be an opportunity today may no longer be an opportunity tomorrow. And as we pivot and focus on those international markets, we can't forget the importance of the domestic market. It's obviously been hugely beneficial to the industry over the last 18 months, and has kept many hotels afloat. Some just, but has kept the industry afloat. So let's not ignore the importance of the domestic market, and make sure that we continue to have a balanced approach.
I've heard a lot of marketing people say that since COVID, one of the best practices that they'll continue on with is how fast they can get a campaign out now, because it changes so quickly that you have to be fast or it's too late.
Absolutely. I think it's definitely taught us to be very nimble and very responsive to what's happening in the local market, but also changing the way that we market our products, because the way that the domestic market will respond to marketing is very different to some of our inbound markets. And I think particularly the international brands have had to learn very quickly, whereas some of the local brands in Thailand already had that expertise.
Right, yeah. So everybody's learning different things.
Indeed. Yeah.
And what about other market segments like corporate, or is anything happening? You're seeing a little bit of a hint, or not really?
Yeah, so we know in Asia that corporate travel was really hit hard by the very strict border controls all across Asia. And then we know for Thailand, a lot of our corporate business is coming from Asia Pacific source markets. So it's really ground to a halt through the last 18 months. We are starting to see pockets of recovery from certain industries, So mainly industries that need to have a physical presence in the market. So industries like manufacturing, oil and gas, technology, and even some finance sectors. And they've been recovering even while there was quarantine, but since the 1st of November, we're really seeing that accelerate with a lot more project work coming into Thailand, which has been really positive. Still very slow, but we're definitely very optimistic about 2022. And that optimism is reflected in a lot of the industry findings. So there was a recent report by the World Travel and Tourism Council that highlighted Asia Pacific to lead the globe in business travel recovery in 2022. So they're forecasting a 41% increase in business travel spending versus this year. So it's obviously coming from a very low base, but really pleasing to see that they are forecasting the strongest growth out of any market globally.
There's hope.
There is. But that said, we need to prepare for this increase in demand because we've had such a pause in corporate travel. We may not yet be prepared for when that comes back. So I would have 2 key tips for really helping to drive that corporate demand. And the first is continue to implement and adhere to your safety standards. We know that health and safety is a key priority for corporate accounts, and they will prioritize properties over another based on the health and safety standards that can be delivered. So really important that they are adhered to, but also communicated to your customers to assure them that those processes are in place. And the second is touching on business travel, but also M&E, and that's to prepare for the virtual and hybrid alternatives to in-person events. So just like we're doing today with the virtual meeting, we need to make sure that all of our product across the industry is prepared and have a strong hybrid meeting offering. I hear a lot of comments about hybrid meetings, thinking that it will reduce the amount of meetings and events in our hotels. But if we do it right, it should help to drive increased demand for meetings and events. Because if we have a strong hybrid offering, we're offering an alternative solution to purely online events. And that will really help to propel the recovery for business travel, but particularly for meetings and events.
Yeah, at least you've got some people in the hotel.
Exactly.
And for a transition to bigger events, that's better than none, surely.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay, let me see if anyone's asked a question. They don't normally. No. Sunny, do you have any questions before we let Ollie go? No? No? Great. That's good. Thank you very much. We've got some great tips from revenue, now some sales and marketing. And now we might hand over to Sandy from Ideas, who's going to talk about profit. Thanks, Ollie.
Thanks, Jackie.
Hello, everyone. Just checking that you can see my screen.
Yep.
So good afternoon, and thank you, HSMAI, for the invitation. It's so good to hear from you, Ollie, Nicolas, about what's happening in the industry and what they are doing as well. And I really like the theme today, right? Tomorrow starts today, because we also know that everything was supposed to be due yesterday. And today, I would like to share with you how total revenue optimization is now a reality and how you can also bring it to your organization. The path to total revenue optimization really starts with total revenue forecasting. So it is ever more important right now that we do more with less and increase that productivity as part of your successful organization. So what has changed? Hotels have pivoted to F&B, delivery services during this COVID period, and some hotels are even offering like laundry, dry cleaning services. And for some hotels, car park has been a good source of revenue. Gym memberships and offerings has also been another source of revenue for hotels. And with more of these services and ancillary revenues creeping up because of the increase in domestic business, as what we've heard from Ollie, there are a lot more data points that hotels have to grapple with. And as what Nicolas had said rightly, with so much data, what is relevant and what can be actionable. This definitely brings about so many challenges for hotels with all these things coming in. They wish they had a crystal ball. It is common to hear that each of their hotel units work in silo and makes it difficult for them to make decisions for the entire hotel or even for the enterprise. The amount of data that we have is complex. During this period, we saw how hotels pivoted to F&B and delivery services. And hotels, for the F&B, it can contribute to as much as 50% of their total revenue. And this unit alone has 10 times the amount of data of rooms. That is a lot of data. And of course, it is very time consuming to forecast and budget for all your revenue streams. However, with total revenue optimization, it is now a reality, as there is now a single source of truth that can align your processes. Total revenue forecasting can be realized for guest rooms, for F&B, M&Es, as well as ancillary revenues like your spa, golf, and car park, which are really important to your bottom line. And this is where a lot of hotels are pivoting to as well with the domestic business. Now imagine all of this information being connected to each other that you are able to forecast, and your finance systems are able to sync with all this, and your CFO has got the latest updated information as well. With total revenue forecasting, you do want to spend less time on data gathering and definitely more time on analysis and strategy. Actionable insights. All income streams can come together right now from the different departments as you aim towards integrating these different data points. Now imagine when you change a line item in your market segment during forecasting and all the other income streams get updated at the same time. No more sharing of Excel sheets with the F&B director. Cross-functional forecasting can now happen. And back in my operational days, when I had versions of the versions of forecast, it was not only time consuming, I was really tearing my hair out, crunching all these numbers. Imagine being given like an X value number of budget. You can now automate your forecast and you can flow it down to the F&B outlets, to the spa and to the car park at the same time. For F&B forecasting, you can look at it by covers, by average checks, by operational hours, even by day of week of opening of your outlets, so that these are matched with your daily pickup of rooms, as well as for your forecasted room revenues. The F&B director today will now have the visibility to look at the different scenarios of outcomes, like during Songkran, where the F&B spend is a lot higher. They are able to also look at resident guest occupancy and then forecast for non-resident guests F&B covers as well as spend. All other ancillary revenues can now come together under one total income stream to be forecasted by guest or even by room. And all these are definitely made possible with advanced analytics and AI. Where hotels want to be is to bring order to a chaotic process. I really wish I had this tool back then when I was doing my budgeting and forecasting. Now, hotels we saw needed solutions towards efficiency, and it's important to drive in efficiency with speed and accuracy. Investors and asset managers want a fast return to profitability. And in an increasing dynamic world, like location is the word of real estate, profit is king when we talk about a hotel asset value. I'm sure a lot of you can identify when you speak to your owners. So let's talk about profit optimization. A profit-based optimization approach enables hoteliers today to think very differently and act very differently because they want to get the most valuable guests into the bedrooms and targeting guests that cost the least but spend the most on site. Now let's look at the models we have talked about over the years. The main goal of hotels, of course, is room revenue, to get the most room revenue into every bedroom. And all of you are already, or some of you are already doing with automation. A revenue management system is not just a nice tool to have, it is a necessity today. And total revenue has been talked about for a long time, This is where you think about the total revenue you can get from a particular guest, which is what I was talking about just now, total revenue forecasting. All these revenue streams, however, have a different cost and profit margin that is associated with it. And this is where profit margin comes in to prioritize the value and considering the cost of what it takes to acquire this business. So what happens is when hotels actually adopt profit optimization, or some of our guests who have adopted profit optimization, this is what they are saying. It provided insights into the true cost that was associated with the revenue streams. It allowed them to have a true understanding of the total guest spend, and they can now focus on what are their marketing campaigns and how it impacts their bottom line. They were able to foster and instill a profit mentality throughout the entire organization, and the teams were able to optimize their business mix to target the demand that is least expensive to acquire, that spends the most on site and costs the least to service. And finally, they saw that profit optimization led to greater profits that leads to reinvestment and expansion, long-term growth, of course, a return on hotel investment. Now you can look at profit optimization in two areas, right? The guest segment as well as M&E segment. Looking at the guest room optimization, we can look at the net room revenues added with the ancillary spend and less of all the other costs. And with M&E, you will look at the revenues of your rental and AV equipments, less the cost of commissions and the servicing costs. This will help you to understand what profit you can gain from this group versus the profit that you would by displacing or accepting another group. Now, it is certainly not just revenue, but cost that comes into play as well. Now, some hotels that specialize in long-staying guests prefer to just focus not just on ancillary, but on prioritizing the servicing cost. And there are different servicing costs like interim housekeeping services, full service or full turn, and knowing the cost at this level and at the same time folding it into your optimization can make a big impact, especially in this COVID world where guests may not want as much service throughout their stay. In profit optimization, accounting for channel costs takes place not just by segment, but also by channel and by source. To be able to provide the profit and value of the single guest will definitely help you to understand your bottom line better, to plan for your strategies, rather than operating blindly with gut feel on what works when you do not have the data. Now, you can now also introduce new KPIs into your organization. Besides the usual ADRs, RGIs, RevPARs, and occupancy, introduce profit per available room, PROPAR, or even PROPOR, profit per occupied room, because this matrix will be able to help you understand profit performance daily or for an aggregated period of time. You can also view these profit measures alongside other performance measures. You can understand the impact of your profit when you make a pricing change. And most importantly, you would be able to gain visibility on profit performance. So lastly, all this can be possible only when people, processes, and technology come together in your organization. I wish you all the best in your total revenue optimization journey. Keep safe and Khop Khun Ka.
Thanks, Sandy. That's great. Does anyone have a question? I don't have any in the little question.
Well, Jackie, I do have one question.
Go.
And it's like talking about numbers. It's my favorite topic. Well, you know, after COVID, I think people now looking at more on the bottom line and GOPs than total revenues now. So this question is actually going to throw either to Nicolas or Ollie. So could you please share your top 3 tips to everyone here? How do you actually lower down your cost per sale?
I think maybe I can start. I think I think definitely, I think in Thailand now I think there's a lot about what's a break-even point, especially during COVID. I think that was the main thing, right? I think we were more focused on, okay, what business can we get? We knew we couldn't really expand the business with only domestic. So we kind of, you had to really shift your mind into more of profit and what can get you closer to at least, you know, break even. I think that was the key thing here. So that's what we've worked on. Obviously, taking into account what can be done. I think right now also still reopening, I think there's this big question of, you know, do we hire, do we not hire? We have a lot more last minute booking. What's going to happen with all of that? So I think you got to be a bit careful with your headcount. However, you know, there's also the thing of we're getting through something I think a lot of people are talking about, right? So there's a lot of people that just maybe went into different, I think in Thailand, some of them did their own business and suddenly maybe don't want to come back. So I think it's going to be, there's a mix between all of that, having profit, but also making sure that when do you get the people back? What do you need? How you're going to be staffed? And obviously, I think maybe Ollie can add on that as, you know, how much you spend on which channel is more profitable. Booking direct is great, but, you know, how much marketing can you spend and what's the ROI? I think it's all of that.
Yeah, further to that, I think, first of all, need to understand your fixed costs and not sell below that as a starting point. And then really make sure that you're maximizing every channel that is profitable. I think in these times we get sometimes too focused on profitability and we start yielding out or not maximizing opportunities because of that cost. And this is very true for some stakeholders when we talk about OTAs, and they're focused on the commission, but not considering the total profit that room night or booking is delivering. So let's really understand the contribution to profit, and as long as it's above your fixed costs, then it's contributing to your bottom line and hopefully meeting your break-even point. And then really to touch on a point that Sandy raised was really understanding that the total revenue opportunity per channel. We know even from the domestic market, there's been a big difference in the type of customer we're acquiring and the total revenue that they deliver to the property. And that really covers also the sales and marketing expenses per channel.
Okay, that was weird. Can everyone hear now?
Yeah.
Did you get that?
Yeah,
where
I can hear you.
sort of the sound disappeared for a while?
Ollie was frozen, yeah.
Ollie was frozen, which shouldn't happen in Bangkok, right? Okay, well, thank you to all the speakers who put so much time into helping everybody learn a bit more and do better. It's great to be able to help each other. Please keep an eye out for HSMAI. We'll be back in Thailand again in 2022. We've got some things to announce in January, and we're working on some learning events and some more training and things for next year. So follow us on LinkedIn, or there's a HSMAI Thailand Facebook account as well. So follow us or subscribe to the newsletter, and we'll be back, and hopefully we'll be able to see you all in person soon.
Yes, we're also actively recruiting HSMAI members. So go to our website to have a look the benefit to become a member. And also once you become a member, you also have the opportunity to be a part of our advisory board.
Good point. Thank you. That's hsmaiasia.org. Okay.
All right.
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank
Let's
you.
hope Omicron stays away. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.